Welcome to the Stanley Safaris Podcast. In this episode, Sean sits down with Andre Cohen from Ol Lentille in northern Kenya. Together, they explore the story behind this remarkable community-owned lodge, its connection to conservation, culture, and the Laikipia landscape, and what makes Ol Lentille such a meaningful safari experience. We hope you enjoy the conversation.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to another Stanley Safaris podcast where we get to know the owners behind the brands and the camps and lodges that we love to send our guests to. And today I'm joined by Andre, one of the owners of Ol Lentille up in the Laikipia region of Kenya. Thank you so much for joining me, Andre. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, likewise. Great to catch up, Sean.
Perfect. Well, Andre, you're not from Kenya. You have a European background, half English, half French, but you've lived all over the world. You've traveled around the world, Asia, the US, for work. Your wife, Laura, is not joining you today, but she is at the lodge. She's Singaporean. How on earth did you end up in we can see the beautiful landscape behind you, and I can understand why you're there. But how did you go from what sounds like a corporate, busy lifestyle to running and owning Ol Lentille up in Kenya?
Yeah, that's serendipity, I think, is the answer. As you mentioned, we've lived and worked all over Asia, in several countries in Asia and in the US. But about 12, 13 years ago now, we decided to take a break from our busy corporate lives, took a sabbatical year, and spent it traveling through Africa. Not in a
Sure.
not in a high-end way as Stanley Safaris would organize trips, a bit, on a shoestring, with our two sons who were 13
But
and
also,
11
I
at the
mean,
time.
that's an amazing way to do it. You really in the knits and grits of Africa. I did that in 2002 as well, and I think you really get into the bare bones of Africa doing it that way. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I would agree. So anyway, we spent that fabulous year sort of roaming around the back roads of Africa. I think visited 14 or 15 countries from west
Sure.
to east to central to southern Africa. And then sort of went back to our busy lives. Moved to New York. Boys went back to school after having skipped a year. So obviously that was a bit of a hard transition for them.
Yeah.
But since that year, we'd sort of developed that passion for conservation and want to be involved in a conservation project somewhere in East Africa. And quite frankly, when just before COVID started, I was coming to a point where I thought, okay, I've been reasonably successful in the corporate world, but
Mm.
you want at some stage of your life to do something more meaningful, to have more of an impact. And so we started looking around Kenya, and particularly
Mm.
Laikipia, for a project we could invest in or potentially acquire. And Ol Lentille came up a bit accidentally. We were looking at something different in the
Mm.
area and spent 3 or 4 nights as guests at Ol Lentille. And then went back to Singapore, went back to our normal lives. But about a year later, when COVID started, the owners at the time of Ol Lentille reached out,
Mm.
saying they were looking for investors, and so we decided to take the plunge. And yep, I suppose the rest is
Sure.
history, as they say.
Sure. So that sabbatical that you did, was that the first time you'd been to Africa?
No, no, we'd been several times before that on
Mm.
on safaris, on
Okay.
various trips,
Yeah.
hiking trips, etc. So we'd always had a passion for Africa.
Mm.
The sabbatical was really a way to get off the grid and I suppose pull ourselves out of our comfort zone as a family, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah.
We'd lived a fairly pampered expat lifestyle for many years, and we wanted our kids particularly to be exposed to,
Yeah.
real life, I suppose.
Yeah. Okay. And then you were in Kenya. What made you look at East Africa as the place that you wanted to invest in?
So Kenya had quite a few examples of sort of community-driven or community uh, partnerships linked to conservation. And so we thought it was a place where there was a model that was somewhat established, and it would be an easier access. So also, we had quite a few friends in Kenya that we'd known for decades, and so we had a bit of a landing point in Kenya. It wasn't completely new to us.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. And then you said you were looking in that Laikipia region. What is it about Laikipia? I love Laikipia. I just think it's an incredible place, and we love to send our guests up there. But what made Laikipia special for you? What was the reasoning behind that area?
So I think it's a combination of, fairly underdeveloped for tourism. You don't have the massive hotels you've got in busier parks like the Masai Mara or Amboseli. It tends to be still run. The properties there tend to be mostly run by independents who've been either fourth, fifth generation early European settlers, or people such as ourselves who've come in and fallen in love with the place, invested. So it was a bit more independence, underdeveloped, beautiful landscapes. And I think again, quite a good model of partnership between communities and conservationists, and I think a successful model of conservation. So
Yeah.
that's. But then there's something also just, I suppose, purely emotional. We'd been to Laikipia many times before that, and it's just we'd fallen in love with the place, so it had to be
Yeah.
Laikipia.
Yeah, and rightly so. Like I said, the view behind you, that's what it is. That's on your doorstep. So I can completely understand why you fell in love with that area, and why we love sending our guests up there. So yeah, that's amazing. And your kids now, your kids are older. They finished school. And I met, I think when I was at Ol Lentille, I met one of your sons, or both of them, I can't remember, but they moved between Singapore and Kenya, or they a little bit more established now in one or the other?
Yeah, no, well, so our eldest son Conrad, I think, who you met in when you visited, he's now in Hong Kong.
Okay.
He working in Hong Kong. He was caught as a university student in the US. He was caught by the COVID restrictions, and so he was sort of stuck for several months without being able to attend classes in person. So he came over to Kenya and spent quite a bit of time with me, helping to set up everything from our Wi-Fi system with Starlink to sourcing new supplies, etc. So he was really involved, and I think if he could, he'd probably come and help out at Ol Lentille. At the moment, he's busy with his sort of first job in Hong Kong, so he doesn't really travel to Kenya as much. And
Yeah.
our second son, no, he's in Japan. He's still a student. He's in his final year.
Okay.
But yeah, both boys are pretty passionate about Ol Lentille. So at some point they might get
Amazing.
involved.
Yeah. And take us back to that time when you first arrived at Ol Lentille, having invested in and kind of having ownership in it. What was the lodge like back then, and how much work did you have to do on the existing property to get it to where it is now?
Yeah, I mean, the answer is a lot of work. It's we'd stayed as guests about 2, 3 years before actually investing. It was already quite run down, and we tend to be sort of positive people. We don't kick the tires, and we look at the positive side of things. But we could feel it was already quite run down at the time,
Yeah.
and so 3 years later it was. Literally, the roofs were leaky, the solar system was gone, the solar water heaters didn't work, so the furniture was falling apart, and it's funny because I spoke to one of the guides, one of our guides who was actually our guide when we came as guests, and he told me after we'd started the renovations, we're so pleased you're here because this place felt like it had died, and it was
Sure.
literally,
Yeah.
I think the previous
So
owners who'd set up the project, and I think had done a fabulous work, sort of
yeah.
bringing the project to a certain level, had lost interest and I think run out of funds, and so no, it took a lot of work. I mean, I would say it's still work in progress. There's always something
Yeah.
in the Safari Lodge to
It's
fix or
true.
improve on, as you probably know.
Yeah.
But no,
So
it took us a year to get it to a point where we felt we could uh, be presentable to high-end
yeah.
guests, and yeah, it was a lot more work than we thought,
Mm.
and quite frankly, initially we thought it would be sort of a part-time project, and we could pursue other interests, and we got sucked into a point where it
Mm.
became really full-time, and in 2024, Laura and I were essentially the lodge managers. We were there full-time.
Yeah.
From 2025 onwards, we've been there a little less frequently, but we were still there quite a lot. I'm on my laptop, on the phone with the lodge guys daily,
Mm.
basically.
Mm.
So it's become a very much a full-time job.
Yeah. Sure. And you mentioned your guide and how he felt that it was dying, and for me that's quite sad to hear that, because it must have been quite disheartening for them. Because if I remember correctly, the land is owned by four local communities, two Samburu and two Maasai. And I don't know if that's increased, because I think last time we spoke, you were saying that there were more communities that were wanting to get involved. So the communities have a direct influence and benefit from the lodge. Talk us through that aspect and that model that you guys work with them.
Yeah, so it's a super interesting model, and to be frank, that's what led us to participate in this project.
Yeah.
I call it collaborative conservation. It's essentially we don't own anything. So Laura and I operate the business, if you will.
Hmm.
But the lodge itself is owned by a local Maasai community, so the Kijabe Maasai, who are Solomon's community, whom you know very
Mm.
well.
Yeah, I know Solomon. Yeah.
Um, and uh, um, and then the land itself, the land of the conservancy, is owned by four communities, two Maasai, two Samburu. Um, so they benefit on multiple levels. To the Kijabe Maasai who own the lodge, we pay a fixed rent that goes up every year. So that's a sort of fixed
Okay.
revenue for us to have the right to operate the lodge.
Hmm.
And then to all four communities, we pay a bed night fee. So that varies depending on how much land they've contributed.
Okay.
We also try very hard to employ from the local community. So about 90% of our employees are Maasai Samburu. The only
Wow.
positions that aren't local tend to be very specialized positions like a chef or a
Yeah.
mechanic, where we can't find the local talent. And then we've set up about 2 years ago, we set up a non-profit, the Ol Lentille Foundation, which we're partly funding through the conservation fee that we charge guests who come
Yep.
and stay, and partly at this stage through Laura and my contributions. But ultimately, the idea would be to raise funds to be able to support more projects in the community. So, in fact, I think Stanley Safaris made a contribution a couple of years ago, which was
Yeah.
greatly appreciated. And so we give out bursaries to secondary
Hmm.
school students. We give out school meals. We build
Sure.
teachers' housing or dormitories for girls in schools, etc. So it's a fairly extensive impact we have on the community. So it's a way
Yeah.
to sort of amplify what we do through just financial payments or the bed night fees or the lease.
Mm. So I think the last time I was there, we went to go and see the school, and the kids were in quite a small classroom. The new school was just being built or just finishing up. So I assume everybody's moved across into the new school now. And how's that going?
Yeah, no, it's going very well. I mean, it's there's yeah, no, it's the needs are always much greater than what we can support. So, but in that case, it's they've had a good transition. And yeah, I think part of the model is um, to make sure that the communities that own the conservancy have enough of a benefit to offset what they lose by giving up, grazing land. And where the model is interesting, I find, is that it's we're completely unfenced, and so um, and the reason why we're unfenced is because we're a major migration corridor. So we essentially we're one of the few open unfenced parts of Laikipia where elephants primarily, but other wildlife as well, migrate from Samburu to Mount Kenya and back again. So we cannot be fenced. We have to be unfenced. And the only way to be unfenced is if and to have discipline amongst the owners of the land is for them to have enough skin in the game in a way. So they know that if they start bringing a herd of 200 cows into the conservancy, there'll be consequences. They might lose bed night fees. They might lose bursaries, and so we try to create as much value for them as possible, so that there's an incentive. And that's again, I find that a super interesting model. It's the opposite of what they call fortress conservation, right? Where you've got fences, lots of armed rangers, and you keep the outside world outside, right?
That's for you, and this is for us, and everything's separated. Exactly. So when my previous job, I learned through that how important the community is in conservation, and I think the model you've got going on there is amazing, and that's exactly how it should be, that the two are hand in hand. And over the time that you've been there, have you seen a shift in the mentality towards conservation from the local communities that are benefiting from it?
Yeah, no, it's I think and look, to be honest, this predates us. It started in 2007 when the notch started. I mean, there's been a massive impact there over the last 18 years now. The largest supported the building of 8 schools. So in the community outside the conservancy, so a lot more kids obviously get educated. There's a direct correlation between education and conservation typically, because they understand that there's value in conservation. Whereas, just adding more cows to your herd and sending it to eat all the grass is just, it's a short-term solution. So there's been an impact in terms of education. I think there's an impact in terms of the way people realize that you can't have an ever expansive capital-based economy in a place that's semi-arid like Laikipia, and particularly Laikipia North where we are. So where maybe a generation ago having lots of cows was a status symbol, it was a symbol of wealth, etc. I'm seeing, and it's more anecdotal, I don't have real numbers to share at this stage, but a lot of the more educated Maasai and Samburus we work with, either who work for us at the lodge or who are just part of the community, switching away from cows and maybe either investing in camels, which are more resilient to droughts, but also much lighter on the land, or getting into other economic activities. But I think, if you can prove to people who've been pastoralists for thousands of years that there's a limit to how much the land can sustain, I think you've won the battle. And we're not there yet, but I think that there are enough opinion leaders in the community that you're starting to see that the needle's moving a bit. And for me, that if I could leave one legacy, it would be that, right? That there's less impact on the land, and that you get paid for through tourism rather than get paid by having lots of cows
Yeah.
that will anyway die after, when the first drought hits, because you know
Yep.
that's what happens.
Yeah. And is there opportunity to scale up in terms of getting more communities with more land involved around where you are?
Yes, I mean I'd love to do that, and I think we chatted about it last time you were at the lodge. But it's complex because I mean the now we're talking about more remote Samburu communities in the
Yep.
north who are typically uh, less educated, less open to conservation, who like the benefits of conservation, but a bit harder to discipline from
Yep.
don't sneak in at night with your cows or set up an illegal manyatta in the middle of the conservancy. But we're talking to them,
Okay.
and I would hope we can bring in at least one more community north of north of our current boundary.
Okay. Awesome. Amazing. And since you've been there, have you seen an increase in wildlife numbers that are coming through?
Yeah, it's again, it's anecdotal, and that's sort of a miss on our side, but we haven't had the resources to do proper counting, and but certainly there's I mean elephants are almost always present
Yeah.
around the lodge. We've got a couple of water holes. You've seen them yourself.
Yep.
We've the last 18 months, I'd say, we've had two prides of lion that have settled in the conservancy. We hadn't seen lions for
Amazing.
years.
Yeah.
And of course, we have a lot of zebras, greater kudus, elands, and so that's obviously the right
Yeah.
prey for lions. We had until last week, I think they moved on. We had a pack of wild dogs, about 16 or 18 wild dogs that were just
Yeah.
around the. So it's not,
I,
we're
I
not
saw
going to
that
say,
on your social media. That's amazing to have those guys coming through.
Yeah, it was spectacular, and they're I mean, wild dogs, they're fascinating because once they've got a prey and they start eating, they totally ignore you. You can come to
Yeah.
within 5 meters of them, and they're just tearing at
Yeah.
whatever
Yeah.
they've killed, and no, I
Amazing.
think there's definitely been an impact on wildlife. I mean, I think what we're trying to do now is to see how we can, during periods of drought, allow controlled grazing in the sort of outer limits of the conservancy, not in the core area, obviously, where we bring guests to sundowners and game drives and hikes, etc. But because you've got to, it's got to be collaborative. We can't just put up a wall and the cows are dying on this side and we've got grass, so
Yeah. 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 No, it has to work for everybody. So Andre, talk us through what makes Ol Lentille so special for a guest. And we've spoken about the wildlife, and it is coming back, but the wildlife isn't a key focus, is not the main focus of why people are coming to Ol Lentille. What are people doing when they're there? What makes it so special?
Yeah, so as an ex-marketing guy, I sort of try to think of how we could position Ol Lentille in a way that makes it unique, and I think I landed on that concept of the three Ps: so place, people, and privacy. And place is the location, and as you pointed out in my background, it's an absolutely magical, spectacular part of Laikipia, and it's endless ripples of hills and deep valleys, and so it's and isolated, right? There's no one near us. I think the closest safari lodge is probably a good hour's drive away from us.
Yeah.
And we're the only lodge on in the area on the conservancy, so you'll never meet another vehicle. But it's just the beauty of
Special, yeah.
So taking guests out of the car, getting them to walk, to hike, to climb Ol Lentille Peak, to walk in a dry riverbed, to go for picnics, bush dinners, etc. So first P for place. The second P for people. We're community owned, and so I think some of the things that you experienced when you came yourself, or you came with guests, is that complete authenticity of the community experience. It's the opposite of the somewhat Disney-fied
Yeah.
Maasai experience you can get in some other parts of East Africa. It's so we try to ride on whatever's happening in the community when it gets visitors. If there's a wedding happening, you'll be invited, and it'll be very natural and organic, and you won't be sort of the Wazungu who are there
Yeah.
peeping at the proceedings. You're just one of the guests.
Yeah.
Baby naming ceremonies, women's blessings, warrior initiations, all sorts of community activities. It's a very sort of Nat Geo experience.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the unique aspects of Ol Lentille.
Yeah.
The third P, privacy. We're an all villa concept, as you know, so four villas, and when you book a villa, you essentially get your own house staff and guide and game viewer, and you dine whenever you want, wherever you want. We'll prepare whatever you want for your meals. So you get a very, very intimate, bespoke experience. So I think the combination of these three P's is what makes us unique. And I think we've tried to focus a lot in the last 18 months on quality of F&B. So I think we've quite enhanced our dining experience. We had a great big personality South African chef who came to do some training and whipping of our kitchen style, but we've really improved the offering there. We've worked a bit on service. So I think it's a nice, I suppose it's a high-end lodge, but in a very raw community area. So that sort of juxtaposition of your in the morning you might go and attend a circumcision ceremony in a village, but you come back and you're pampered in the lodge. So that's what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah. Okay. And what I love about it is that it works so well in combination with Amara, where they're going to go and get that high intense game viewing, maybe another like Kipia property where you've got rhino, and then combining with yourselves where that big focus on the people on the cultural aspect, and it works so well in combination with those. But I want to go back to the importance of the authenticity behind the cultural experience, and that it's not a show, and we're completely against, as you say, that Disney-fied show and dance and everything else that happens in more popular areas. But because the Samburu and Maasai communities own the land, you're being invited into their homes. And one of the things I loved about the time that I've been there, and I've been there twice, and both times we've gone and met the local communities in the village, and they were asking us as many questions as we're asking them. And I found that two-way engagement very reassuring, because they were wanting to understand our lifestyle and our culture, and how it is I only have one wife and I'm 46 and my kids are young, and trying to understand all of that. It was very reassuring to see the two-way engagement.
No, I think that's I mean these interactions make for really fascinating encounters sometimes. I mean, we've had guests spend an hour in a mud house with speaking to a mama, and just fascinating conversations, and and I think that's what you get out of a state Ol Lentille, is that unfiltered, very sort of peer-to-peer relation with the community. And I've not personally experienced that very much in other parts of East Africa.
No, it's very important, and both Samburu and Maasai are very proud people. So I think they love having guests come in and get to see their culture. And then the other thing that I love about it is this ability just to get out and walk. I love walking safaris and kind of getting out and about. But a lot of people get in their minds, they want to go on safari, they want to tick off the big five and be confined to that vehicle. And having the freedom to go and just walk through the dry riverbeds, or we hiked from the lodge all the way up down the valley, up to the mountains, and a lot of activity in that sense, which again works really well with your traditional safari in the Mara or one of the other like Kipia properties that is more wildlife focused. And yeah, we get that message across to, I guess, that getting out and walking is important to break up the experience, and I think that's where Ol Lentille works so well for us.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I actually did a leopard tracking last month. It was fascinating.
Wow.
Just near reception area there was a leopard around the waterhole. So we went with a couple of rangers and got to within probably 25-30 meters of the leopard, and then he sort of vanished, and we thought that's
Sure.
close enough. We shouldn't.
Amazing.
But it's
Yeah.
yeah, no, you can. Again, I mean, the wildlife is definitely more skittish at Ol Lentille than it would be in a busier park, simply because animals don't grow up they're surrounded by vehicles, and
Yeah.
but on foot, surprisingly, you could probably approach them relatively better than
Yeah.
in a vehicle.
Yeah. No, amazing. Very, very cool. And what else? Any future plans other than potentially bringing in other communities? Is there any future plans for Ol Lentille, or have you got your hands full with that for now?
We got our hands full. I mean, what I'd like to launch, and we got delayed because of all sorts of issues last year, but is sort of a fly camp experience, so a night out camping, but done in a very Ol Lentille way. So having maybe elders join the guests around the campfire at night and chat about have a campfire chat basically. Have a star reader come maybe after dinner and describe read the future in the stars. So try and create a bit more of a community connected fly camp. So spend a night at the lodge, maybe go and spend another night in a tent, and then come back for a third night or fourth night in the lodge.
Yeah,
So
we spoke about
we
that.
bought all
Yeah,
the
that's
equipment. We just haven't set it up yet,
okay.
and haven't tried it out ourselves. So I think it'll probably be for next year. I think by the time we set it up, iron out the kinks, and then take photos and launch it.
No, that's very exciting. We love that combination of the adventure with the luxury, and we're seeing a lot more guests wanting to do that on the ground, authentic experience, and then have the luxury afterwards, the pampering and things like that. When I was there, and we were talking about the fly camping concept. The conservancy is quite big, and because a lot of it is done on foot, and that there's quite a big part of the conservancy that it takes a while to go and see, and that's, I think, where you were talking about doing the fly camp is on a remoter part of the conservancy, and you've got Gerenuk there and things like that. So again, kind of adds a different element to the overall experience.
Yeah, no, you're right. There's one what the Tiamamut is called, one part of the conservancy that's quite different from the area around the lodge. Is very mountainous. It's a bit more dry riverbeds, flatter plains. So you tend to have a lot of grevy's, zebras there, edens, gerenuks, and it's a nice spot for camping. But we could also, I mean, that can be customized. It'll be a, it could be anywhere. If guests want to stay, 20 minutes away from the lodge because in case in the middle of the night they decide that it's not for them, they want to be driven back, we can do that too.
Do that, yeah. Awesome. Amazing. Well, Andre, it was amazing to see you again and hear the story and understand what makes Ol Lentille so special. Our guests love it. The feedback from there has been amazing. We've got some more coming up this season. I'm very excited for them to come and experience what you guys are doing there. Get to meet the team, get to meet the incredible Samburu and Maasai warriors that are inevitably their guides while they're there. Please pass my regards to Laura and Solomon and the rest of the team there. And good luck for the upcoming season. And again, thank you so much for your time.
No, thanks as well for your support, Sean.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Stanley Safaris Podcast. A special thank you to Andre Cohen from Ol Lentille for sharing his time and insight. Next time, Sean sits down with Bob and Jenny Stanley to reflect on his own journey, where his love for Africa began, the moments that shaped him, and the path that led him into safari.